Settings. Yeah. What about? Yep,
Can you hear me now?
works. Oh, there you go. Okay.
I got you. You know, as I dive into this whole like experiment of this podcast, I when I started it, I thought I was just going to be talking to creative people or people who identified as creative in some way. And then the more I got into it, I realized that human design was such a huge part of what I wanted to talk to people about, whether they were active in their experiment or not. And I realized like now it's like it wants to be more human design focused. So I'm obviously now kind of focusing more on who's create think people who are creating things around human design. And so I'll definitely let you know if I
Right.
run into any more. I do think it's interesting to see more artwork like yours emerging, you know, just this that and that's part of what I wrote. Like I've been sort of consuming everything you've been creating on your channel the last day, just kind of diving into the things that you've created, and I love it. It is so like tasty. My design is like yum yum. This is really,
Nice.
yeah, it's really interesting. And like I mentioned on a Facebook conversation, I've been a fan of yours and just your creative vibe and everything that you're creating. And I'm curious, are you like intentionally creating around human design? Has it, or is that kind of just the way it's moving for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Almost
intentional.
almost exclusively. Um, just because that's like a niche that I'm into. I mean, it's all I care about
Yeah,
anyways. So it's like
right.
all I ever think about and talk about, with some exceptions, of
Sure.
course. But yeah, as far as like what I could see myself, like what sphere I want to be in, like that's it. So,
Good.
but yeah, I mean, like um, I tend to do that. Like I worked at a company for like over a decade where like I was the I where I just automatically started like writing jingles for them and promotional material and so without them even asking, and then going to them and being like, hey, so I've got all this stuff, because I just get like excited about like whatever I'm involved in. Like if I was into Jesus, I'd probably be writing Christian rock music,
Right.
like it's what's coming out. So, but yeah, there's a certain amount of intentionality of because also because there's just so little has been done as of yet. It's just an untapped um subject matter,
Yeah.
and there's so much that could be done.
So
So
true. And
yeah.
you're the only one who can create exactly the things that you're creating. I mean, it could only have come from you. And so I feel like that's the other thing as we dive into like the diversity, the you know, the distinction of our unique designs, like for me has unlocked me creatively in a way because I trust myself in a different way now, I think, because I'm realizing like, wow, like I am different, like by design, we're all different. So obviously the things that we're creating are going to be so unique to our design. And so
Right.
it
But then
like,
on the other hand, you like see there's so much homogenized content
true. That is true.
within out there in the human design world. It's like, okay, well, this is, I don't know, you guys, that all looks the same to me. Like,
That
you
is
know,
true. That uh, your
not
human
us,
design,
but there's just so much of it is like people are trying so hard to
yeah,
like get in on it, and it's like you're doing what everyone else is doing, and it's this whole thing is about not being homogenized.
that it there has been like this uh it is trendy right now, right? I mean, it is kind of like a thing that people want in on the conversation, or it seems like there it is. And I thought your human design video, maybe it's your most recent one, like really captured that. Like, holy shit! I had no idea. When you saw it in that context, it was like it is really like the conversation is booming right now around human design. So uh and so
For
much of
sure.
it is like regurgitated and homogenized, but
And
and
also,
then
wrong. A lot of it's just wrong.
so that's right, because people just desperately want to be part of the conversation and not really active in any sort of you know
And they just jump into it too early. And I mean, I see people like trying to teach human design, like on YouTube or whatever. It's what I see most of is YouTube
Yeah.
and Instagram, but YouTube is where I see stuff that I don't follow. Like YouTube, that's I look at YouTube every day to see what kind of human design content is coming out,
Mhm.
and that's where I see a lot of this, just the same thing over and over again.
Right.
As far as like video content on Instagram, I see a lot of just the same sort of looking carousels and just like these affirmations that are like
Mhm.
purple on silver with lavender and stars, and then there's like pink with lavender and gold and off and cream colored white, and then there's like somebody's got with their brand is they're using some yellow. Oh,
Yeah.
these people, guys, this person's got some yellow going on. This is really interesting
Get
now, but
out
it's all
there.
just like 5 ways that projectors can, use their energy better. And it's like
Uh-uh.
the same thing that someone else posted yesterday. It's so there's a lot of that kind of homogenized stuff, but still, just all the wrongness, like the people who just are literally just disseminating wrong information about human design.
Yeah.
And
There's definitely a lot of it. And then yeah, teasing through it. I mean, and I just get tired. In fact, that came up in my conversation with Anya, that I've had these waves of just being like, I don't know if it's just like I'm done with human design. I think I'm just over it and I can't consume anymore. And I know it's like my open head has just been like, um, you know, too open and just absorbing too much. And I just see it to a point where I'm like, I'm done and I have to just step away from
mm-hmm.
consuming it and even thinking about it. But then, of course, it just creeps back in because I can't not. It has become such a compass for me in my own internal. I'm just so aware of it now. I can't not be uh, in
Yeah.
it. But I do get to a point sometimes where I just have to be like, that's too, I can't consume any more of other people's content about human design because
I
there's so
hear that
much.
from so many people, including myself.
Yeah.
And I mean, it usually happens to me, um, like during the bottom of the wheel, like the quarter of civilization. I tend
Mm-hmm.
to like go through a phase of not think like when it first started happening. I was early on, like when we were taking that class together, and we it got. I had been in human design, like doing it just intensely every day, studying from when I woke up in the morning until I went to bed at night for like 10 months. And then it just suddenly, like, I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it anymore. And I thought it was over. And it was like really disappointing and sad, like to, to think that I just was done with it.
Yeah.
Because it had been like the source of all of my inspiration and all my creativity and all my mental excitement and my study and this whole new way of being and all these new people and all these new new ideas and everything. And then suddenly to be like, oh, I don't have this thing anymore, and there's no substitute for it. It wasn't like being replaced with excitement about some other thing. It was just
Right.
like suddenly I'm full,
That's what
and
it felt like. Yeah.
now I what do I do? Like what there's no other drug,
Right.
you know? And
Yeah.
so that happens to me, and this just the last couple times I've been able to tell myself like, oh, this just happens all the time.
Mm.
Like, this is just,
Part of the
this is just what
process.
happens. And
Yeah.
um yeah, it's there's just this now this sort of faith in the idea that like, okay, well, this is just temporary and I'm going to be obsessed with it forever.
Right. Right.
But it kind of sucks because, you know, I want to find some way of being able to, you know, make a living. I'm not going to ever be an analyst or a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
but to be able to consistently produce things that are human design related, but I can't do that. I can't. I get sick of it. And I also like, there's like all these ideas that I don't do because they're just ideas. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I could just keep myself busy. If I had a defined ego or something, I could just like push through and be like, okay, I'm doing this one, and then I'm gonna make that video, and then I'm gonna do this thing, and you know, record this song and do it, you know. But instead, it's just like I don't feel like it. I just don't fucking feel like it today,
Right.
and I just can't do anything I don't feel like doing. It's been 12:22, and
It's just not going to happen.
it sucks.
Yeah.
It's and then the more I get into my experiment, the less I'm able to force myself to do anything.
I definitely understand that. Even with my defined ego, I get to a point where I'm like, things do not get finished because I have constantly more ideas that I would rather do, that I would rather spend my attention on or my
Right.
time or
Also, you're
my
a manifester.
right, right. And I'm not going to finish it anyway, but if I am going to finish it, I'll finish the thing that I want to work on now, not the thing that I wanted to work on last week. uh,
Right.
it's constantly in motion. It feels like hitting a moving target sometimes for me. But so obviously, when
Also,
you,
you have the looking at your chart, you have
oh
the
yeah,
hold on a second. Yeah, you have the 42. So that is finishing things.
it is.
I don't know. Um, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Some things do get finished. I feel like because of my will, I will them to completion uh, a lot of times. But then the number of ideas that I have far surpasses the energy I have to complete them. So there's a lot of things. And because I still create on demand for other people, that I feel like I have to prioritize those other people's projects and use my will
Right.
to finish the people who are paying me.
Oh my God.
And
Right.
so that
I know. I feel like I
yeah.
can't even start like I can't even like put 10 minutes into my own shit if I've got client shit to
Mhm.
do, you
So
know?
you're juggling that in your work.
I'm
Uh,
starting
yeah,
to.
yeah.
I'm starting to.
It is
Yeah.
like a juggle, a creative, energetic juggle of resources and um, yeah. So your how has your work in general changed since starting your experiment or really getting into human design? Has your work, the way you work, shifted? I mean, you've been making, as you follow your strategy and authority, I'm sure changes have happened, and you're still navigating that, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, like I was saying a minute ago, just not working on anything unless I want to, or unless I feel actually not being able to force myself to do creativity,
Right.
and like being able to feel when I am doing that. You know, like sometimes I'll go for a walk and I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to work on lyrics for a song. And I'll be like grinding and going, and I'll just realize, like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Like, this is just noise in my head. Like,
Mhm.
there's a muscle that's like overworked. Like, I've got to not, I have to be just shut up and like be on a walk and
Mm.
like see what, you know, just let things happen. Because just
Mm.
knowing when I'm forcing something, knowing when, um, knowing when you're shooting yourself, you know,
Mhm.
in creativity,
Yeah, which
um
squashes it some.
and being able to leave yourself open to like to letting something in.
Right.
um but also, yeah, knowing when enough is enough,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know.
How's
Not,
that?
you know, there's like this tendency to, once you get in the creative flow, you can sort of like be unhealthy. You like forget to eat, you don't go to sleep, you like, um you're not really taking care of yourself, which is kind of cool because it's like that's the real flow state, you know.
Right. It's hard to let go of that. When you do are able to kind of like allow that flow to move you, you don't want to stop. I know I have a
Yeah,
hard time when I finally find that flow state. Like I don't know what enough is enough. I just want it to
right.
keep. I just want to keep flowing, and yeah, I can definitely identify with that. Uh,
Get all tweaked out on
yeah,
creativity.
yeah. When you do finally feel that it's moving through you, and you're not like consciously trying to force it into being. It's just moving. You know, for me, that's how it feels. It's like it's a pure body. You know, design creativity, and not this forced mental gymnastics. There's a difference. I feel like sometimes I want creativity to that flow state so much, but I'm like, oh, I'm just in my head about it. I'm not. It's not the real deal. So that.
Sometimes even does seem like the real deal. It's just that I'm I'm still just making myself sick. You know,
Mhm,
it's like
mm,
I'm just gotta come up for air.
right. Yeah, that's it. That's it. And that's a constant practice for sure. That's part of the creative practice for me is mm, prioritizing that rest phase in between the in and the out, and making
Especially
that.
when you are ego defined,
Yeah, for
ego
sure.
ego authority.
Right. It's really easy just to keep grinding, and yeah. uh
Another thing is like, um being trying being able to find the flow a little bit more easily, because there'll be times when I just know to keep moving instead of like thinking over every little decision, every little creative thing. It's become more of like just keep on moving, like keep on dragging this over there and putting this on top of that and working on this little part and not thinking about how it's going to fit in later, and then just seeing it all kind of come together.
mhm.
And just knowing like, okay, like don't measure, don't count how many seconds this thing is, just put the just make it, do it, see how it looks, change it, and just keep going. And
And
that's
then
been something that I just knowing about like that. I'm a manifester, and it just sort of being like, okay, it's just coming through me, this is I'm manifesting, I'm not being mental about it, it's just happening. And it's okay if I waste time on something, because it's still going to inform the way I do things next time, and maybe I'll accidentally come up with something. It's just like go, keep flowing, like keep moving.
yes,
um
because magic does happen in that movement. I think sometimes it just they are like happy
Absolutely.
accidents. Like
Yeah,
I'm like, wow, I could not have planned if I had been intentionally trying to make that happen. But just throwing things together is sometimes I'm like, that's the genius.
totally,
Sometimes it's that is true manifestation for me.
totally.
Uh I love that you have like such a community there too. That's something that like I imagine that it would. Does that help or hinder? I mean, in terms of your creativity, the fact that you have this human design community um, that you can dip in and out of, I don't know if that helps you like know your own design better, or I mean, has it helped you?
Well, first of all, like here in Austin, we do have a good amount of people who are into human design, but our meetups are really usually just me and a couple of my friends.
Right.
Like
Okay.
the projectors have their own meetup, which is way more popular, And I'm kind of
Interesting.
salty about it. It's like, like y'all get like all you like projectors just want to hang out and be nerds together, and then like you have a everybody's allowed to come human design meetup, and it's just like maybe a couple new people check it out, but it's like, and then the projectors like sit around and get all into each other, and
Uh,
um, so I give them shit about that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely good to like spend time in aura with other human design people, you know, with some regularity, especially because there's a couple people that are now like my just friends who like hang out,
yeah,
without having to have a meetup or something. We're just
right.
actually friends.
That's cool
But
too.
I'd say that like more as far as like it having an effect on my creativity and stuff, it's more, I'd say, the online community, or like my friends who I talk to on the phone or in like forums, and I'll get more into what I'm involved in, but that's kind of more influential when it comes to my overall like human design experience and like what I'm doing as far as.
And where you're finding inspiration or how inspiration comes to you. That's something else I'm curious about is like, how do you, I'm sure you're having creative urges all the time. How do you decide which creative urges that you follow or which creative projects want to actually be manifested, want to actually be created, uh, as opposed to just being another idea that you have? How do you know the difference?
Well, partially it's just completely practicality based.
Mhm.
I mean, can I even do that project with no budget, or with the amount of spare time I have, or with the software I have, or with, like, is it even possible? And then like, how much of my energy is it going to take? And so first of all, it's just like, okay, well, if I spend 2 days making an Instagram reel with a really good idea, yes, I'll do it. I'll start it right now. But if there's some ideas that could require, millions of dollars and lots of people,
Right, right.
um but really it's kind of, I just know when something's a good idea, um and if I'm like, oh, I could do that, then I'll do it,
Then you do it. So if it's a good idea and you know you have the resources readily available and you have that impulse to like do it, that's the thing you're going to take action on, really.
Yeah, with a certain level of excitement about it.
Yeah,
It's like,
right,
yeah, it's
right.
just this knowing of like, okay, this is something that I have the energy for, and that I think is going to be impactful, that's going and that, and my authority is excited about,
Right, right.
that's not really a way that people generally describe emotional authority, but that kind of is the case.
That you're
I'm
following
just
your
like,
excitement.
yeah, I mean, it's my right, because I might not even have to go through a wave to just
Mm,
start making something.
mm-hmm,
But I'll know if I have the energy to do it.
right,
And
right,
I'll, yeah, it has to be worthwhile. Like, these frequencies that we carry around, it's like the getting, developing the wisdom to know what's worth doing,
right. That's part of
or
it.
whatever the keynotes are for that. It's just like, have that's the wisdom of recognizing like what to put your energy into.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's something that I have struggled with a lot is wasting energy on things that I just lose excitement over. At first, I'm like really excited about it. And I love that video. I read the description, is one of your first personality videos that you said you started it and then it just lost steam. But then you got these new tools, new technology, and it sort of was like reborn using new tools, and then you were able to finish it with this. And so the old project almost had to become a new project, and then you were able to finish it.
Hmm.
I there was I can't remember which one, maybe the second
It's
personality video
yeah,
that you
there's
had
only
spent.
two of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, uh, but that you had started, spent months and lots of time and energy, and then it just
Yeah,
went nowhere. But then I think you said you got a new computer, new software, and revisited it, and it like breathed new life into this old project that had sort of died and then was reborn as
yeah,
this new thing.
that's what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
Um, yeah, when I switched from iMovie to Final Cut Pro and was able to move the project over to the professional software. But yeah, that's happened. Well, not exactly that, but it has happened a few times where I start a pretty major project and get way into it and then be like, nah, this isn't
just over it.
quite right. Like it doesn't feel authentic, or I don't like the way that thing looks or that thing sounds, and just like, I'm just gonna do something else. Like I don't have to finish this thing.
Right, right. So you do give
Um,
yourself permit. Now it's a lot easier, I'm guessing. Now you at least know why you're not finishing things, or at least why sometimes projects, it doesn't even matter why. It just happens. It just is. Uh, and you just
yeah,
like,
and like it's part of that same wisdom of like knowing what's what's gonna work and what I don't know. You don't just do something because you have an idea.
it's true.
Those are just ideas. Like you have to. It has to be the right one.
Right,
And there's ideas just flying through the air like all day long.
right.
And
Well,
yeah, you can get real excited about some stupid ass thing.
right.
I see it all the time. People who like put all this time and energy into something that just doesn't really land,
Mhm.
or like it's just too contrived or convoluted or
Oh yeah,
too long or too just like it's just not right. There's
yeah.
too many funny things they threw in. It's like, oh, we're gonna make and if it had been like a minute long, it would have been great. But they're like made it like 7 minutes and did all their cool ideas, and it's like, no, you don't have to do all of that. Like you step away from it and like not every idea is for doing. It's Ross
Mm.
said it a million times.
I need to write that
Another,
down as a constant
well,
reminder. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It just reminded myself of another thing about it is like I have alternating determination,
Mhm.
and that's become a big part of my process is like working on something for a little while and then going over there and doing something else, like playing, shooting, throwing darts, like in that video. Like that's something I'll
Mhm.
do. I'll like step away from the thing, like watch a YouTube video, throw some darts, go outside, come back, work on my thing.
Right.
And that's just another thing that's like how the human design is sort of contributed to. I changed the subject, which I
Yeah.
do
That's
all the time.
that's all,
Um,
that's great. Actually,
but
one of my questions is about like which aspects of your chart of your design do you feel like are the most impactful in your daily work and life? Are there certain aspects do you feel like that do inform? And I feel like that sort of answered that question, that aspect of your chart, your determination being alternating, is something that you're like really aware of in your daily
especially when
process.
I'm doing like client work, because
Mm,
that's when I really have to step away from it for a
hmm.
minute.
Hmm.
But yeah, what else? I mean, man, just the energy, just aura awareness.
Mm,
Knowing I'm a manifester is huge for working.
yeah. So you recognized yourself in your design as soon as you found human design. What is your human design origin story? Like what brought you? I mean, it sounds like you lived a good chunk of your adult life without the awareness of your design or of human design. Is this something that you is relatively new information. And did you recognize yourself right away as a manifester?
um so let me see how excited I could get about talking about how I found human design, because I
Yeah.
feel like I've told this story so many times.
You can
It's
do
like,
an abbreviated version.
right. Yeah, it was like somebody at work um was found human design, a projector,
Of course.
and she immediately started doing everyone's charts in the company, and this is a pretty, it was like a 300 person company at that point, you know, but she was like doing everybody at headquarters, and you know, everyone that she was, you know, had relationships with in the company. And then so I found out I was a manifester, but from some other person calling her and being like, run Dave's chart, and they were, and came back like, oh, you're a manifester, and I was like, okay, whatever. And but then it eventually it started to, because I was this person who was actually into HD. She was, I would have meetings with her just one on one about projects, and she just kept on, you know, dropping little things about, you know, like, well, you're a manifester, so like, you know, this is people. She would say stuff like, you know, when you walk into a room, you make an impact, and when you do things without informing, it can be disruptive, and anger this, and repelling aura that. And I'm just like picking up little pieces of it as it goes along, and it was like obviously this like empowering, know yourself, use your energy right kind of thing. And you know, it seemed kind of practical, and also just like I was being told that I'm a rare type, and you know, which I tried to avoid doing when I talk to people about human design. But you know, that was coming at me too, and it was getting to the time of year when um it was time for my evaluation, and I had to like do a, it was, I had gotten to the point where I like needed to re establish who I was reporting to, because I, you know, the company had gotten so big that I was like no longer a manager, but I was, because I was just being a creative role at that point. But then I had a manager who was the person who came in, and it was just sort of like, I'm not, it doesn't really make sense that I'm, that this person is my boss. Like, and it was sort of like I had to like decide who my boss was going to be. It was like it, obviously it has to just be the CEO. It's not like anyone else has anything to tell me. And so I just didn't, so I had to decide and ask for a new salary, and I was going to ask for a computer and this and that. So it was like, okay, what's this manifester thing? You know, just because I had to like, you know, I had been sort of disenfranchised in the, like I wasn't like being invited to leadership building, teamwork retreats anymore. It was just sort of like, okay, what are you guys, what do you want me to do? Like, I'm, you know, like, do you, y'all don't love me no more? I was just kind of like, what the fuck? And so like I was like, let's do this manifester thing. Sounds like a way for me to like step into my power, and
Right.
you know, like know what's, how to, you know, stand up for myself and be this powerful manifester. What is this thing? You know, I was just like, is this is like a thing, right? And so I was like, okay, let me, what should I listen to? Like, what are these lectures? Like, you know, and so she had me told me to listen to some raw. Like, first thing I listened to was the Manifestor signature audio, the one, the free one that's on Jovian
Mm-hmm.
site. And it was just like, okay, this all sounds just right, you know. And I listened, then I listened to the generator signature and the projector one, and then I was just like, you know, spent that whole Saturday just like, actually just from that moment on, I was just 100% into it,
It
and
really resonated from the
basically
beginning.
started my experiment that day, you know.
Wow, wow.
But then like had a reading a few weeks later,
Hmm.
like saw my, I didn't see my body graph for like a week after that, you know, that day. But then, you know, had started having meetings with that person, and she was like showed me my chart and told me about all the types and all the stuff, and I sort of think that's kind of the real day that I started my experiment. I don't know. They say that, you know, there's like an actual moment when you like start,
Mm.
you know, like, and I didn't have, most people, they'd say that's when you have your first reading.
Hmm.
But I, by the time I had my reading, I'd like been studying for every waking moment for
Right.
like a month already.
And had already learned a lot on
Yeah.
your just in your own experiment. Oh, somebody's got a voice.
Hi,
Manifestor.
Grendel. Mm, no, that's pretty sure he's a projector.
Oh, you think projector?
He's an aura penetrator. He'll get
Ah.
all up in your shit, right, Grendel? You want to say hi?
Yeah.
He's won't be his first podcast. Come here,
Ah. Oh, he's made an
come on,
appearance before. What's his name?
Grendel.
Grendel. Grendel. Ah, beautiful.
He's
Hi,
big.
Grendel. I was gonna say he looks like a big boy. Hi, Grendel. Very cute. My dog's over there snoring through the podcast. So.
Nice.
uh, let's see. I know I had I mean, so many of my questions for you are just around your creative process, and um, I feel like that's really. I'm just always fascinated to hear how other people navigate that process, and you know, it's constantly changing for me, and so I love hearing about other people's process, and I especially love hearing about other manifestors. I don't know I know a couple of manifestors in real life, but I don't get to talk to them that often. But um, one is a client or has been a client, and so I obviously we've talked about her creative process before. But I'm always interested in hearing like just that other perspective from other manifestors and how they are navigating that, and especially when you're having to also because I do feel like there are a lot of manifestors in creative fields like naturally, so we have like these different creative hats that we wear where we're creating for other people and also navigating our own ideas and wanting to make an impact with the things that we're creating as personal projects. And um, so was Neutrino Radio, was it born around the same time as your as soon as you started experimenting, or is that something that you created as sort of a vessel for holding your own uh, ideas, basically, for around human design?
It was like a brand for me to start an Instagram page and like to do my media like, you know, when I've made the first personality video, it was just like I just had this whole concept came together. um yeah, I just needed a handle, and
Mhm.
I had that, the idea of Neutrino Radio came in. I was just like, okay, this is like, that's it right there.
So it's a
Yeah.
good one.
um
And then from there, you just started having ideas or having had a place to put your ideas at least.
yeah, like at first it was mostly music.
Mm.
um but I knew I wanted to do videos. Like I was doing at the beginning of, I always wanted to make video stuff, but I just never knew how to do editing. And I tried working with editors to like make stuff, like especially for that company I worked for. Like I'd write a jingle and then like we'd get somebody to shoot it and edit it, and I would have to be there telling them my idea and stuff, but I never like didn't know how to do the editing.
Mhm.
And but then when COVID started, I started doing this cooking show like on YouTube, and but I was had just started doing HD, and I knew I wanted to do human design videos instead of cooking videos,
Mhm.
and I just wasn't sure how to do that, and I also wasn't comfortable like going like coming out as like a human design person.
Right.
You know, people are going to think you're in a cult and that you're into just some stupid astrology thing or whatever. So I didn't go public for like a whole year.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know, it wasn't. Yeah, I didn't. I started Neutrino Radio, but I didn't tell any of my real life friends about it. You know, I didn't post anything on Facebook. I didn't try to like market it to anybody outside of human design. It was sort of a secret
Mhm.
life.
I
But
yeah.
but I knew like it took, I don't know, several months before I like figured out like what kind of content I could do
Mhm.
for HD stuff. But as that came together, just like, I'm designing the logo and I'm gonna make this little jingle song for the intro and the extra and the blah blah blah, and then, it all just kind of came together as this
A brand,
bigger like cohesive concept.
right? And it's still evolving as you refine your content. And I saw you also reference that it is intimidating. I find make there is this fear that I've had also about coming out around it does feel like a coming out around human design, and then also like this anxiety around creating content for the human design community, which feels like this whole other like anxiety inducing uh hurdle, um that it feels intimidating in a way, or because of
Right.
maybe all of that homogenized stuff, and I don't want to be
Well,
doing
also like
that.
we're new, like we're,
Yeah,
when I
very
first
new.
made my first human design video, I'd been in human design for like 4 months or something. It was not in any way knowledgeable. So
Right.
like it's another thing about my approach is kind of this chaotic, like if I'm talking about something I don't know about, like it has to be obvious
Right.
that I don't know what I'm talking about. And instead of me just not talking about it, I might be like, making fun of people who don't know what they're talking about, or like whatever the fuck it is, some way of making it fit into what I am at this point. So it's people aren't just like, well, this guy's full of shit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's more just like, what's this guy talking about? Like, what is that? What was that? What, rewind it, like, or whatever it is. It just kind of like, okay, it just becomes this more mysterious or more,
Yeah.
um, I'm just asking questions, or this is about me obviously just starting my experiment. I'm not, my first video, that first personality video, one of the comments on it was, and this stuck with me, it was just like, it's nice to see somebody making content without like a finger raised, like without their finger raised in the air. It's like, and that kind of that's what I'm trying to do. It's not like I am not the one who knows what to do or what to say. Like that's the last thing I want to be, that guy.
Right. You really leaned into the chaos of not knowing and
Yeah.
really just leaned into not knowing. And there's so much impact in that. The things that you're creating, it ends up being so much more impactful than if you had been one of the homogenized ones that are pretending to know when they have no clue what they're talking about. Uh, it ends up being much more impactful.
Or like using Ra, because Ra
Yeah.
obviously knows. So if I
Right.
if I'm using his voice and just illustrating what he's saying, I feel really comfortable with that. But
Right.
when it comes to me sitting and talking and trying to like teach somebody, I can like me, like, you know, I've heard Ross say this, or like, you know, this, there's this keynote, like, let's, but for me to sit there and be like, I'm the one
Mhm.
who's like has all this insight that I'm so sure of, and that I'm ready to like teach to you. I'm very careful about being that person.
Yeah, yeah. I see that intentionality in what you're creating, and uh, yeah, and I think that's what makes your content for me stand out is that it's clear that you're not trying to be that guru necessarily. You're just creating. It's a creative expression of your experience, of your experiment, really. And that's what's so fascinating, is to see that sort of expressed through you and using the tools that you have, which music obviously is a big part of that. Like, is that where your creative spark started, was with music? I mean, you
Yeah, yeah. Like the first thing I really did as far as like making started doing as far as doing human design content was that thing with bars poem.
yeah, love
The
that.
um it's called Stable Frequency if anybody wants to check it
I'll
out
link
on my
it.
YouTube. But it's just like yeah, because she would back then she was much more intense, just
Mhm.
like trying to find herself. You know, she was just like didn't know how to stand, didn't know how to talk, and she's just like so like tormented manifester, and so that poem was just like one of her YouTube videos. It was like a minute and a half long of her just like talking about being a manifester and what that what that means and her experience with it. And like I would listen to it like when I would just like go for these walks where I'd just try to like tap into passenger consciousness and like go for these long, I could get into that some other time, but these long walks and just trying to like tap in, trying to
Yeah.
like give up, stop thinking, let my body take me wherever it took me. And so that poem I would listen to as like sort of a meditation,
Mm.
but it was too fast. It was she just like barrels through it like, I am a manifester. I'm here to live in peace. Like and but it just like went by like in a minute and a half, and I wanted it to be like this long sort of like floaty thing. So it's like I'm gonna edit this down so it's longer, but then it just turned into this epic musical piece. Um but yeah, I mean I was writing human design songs like from the very first day. Like just
Mm.
started writing, and I was just like, who else is doing, I figured other people were doing that. I thought,
No
I
one.
was like, who are the other human design musicians? And there is a band called Human Design,
No way. Oh wow.
but this guy is like maybe remotely into HD. Like sometimes there's these weird crossovers, but
Not really.
not really. But it's this weird industrial Euro rock
Oh, oh,
that's
interesting.
um
Yeah, you would think there would be. It seems like I've seen some music generated around gene keys, uh, but I, but I have not. I think you may have been. You're definitely the only one that I've seen creating specifically human design related. Uh,
occasionally like somebody will like make a rap where they rhyme something with manifester, and they rhyme something with generator, and they rhyme something with
I guess that counts.
authority, and they rhyme something with aura. And it's just like, okay, like rap is, I'm sorry, but it's just kind of too easy sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like that you can, not that you couldn't do good human design rap, but I mean, give me a hook. Like
yeah.
I feel like you can just like, I don't need 1,000 words. I need like 7 words. So
Right.
the right
Like
just
Bar's video, but she's a poet. I feel like that's the one thing that drew me to her is, and I don't know if it's because English is not her first language, but she was always so poetic in the way, and it really felt like I could feel her words, like when she would speak them, like I could really, my body resonated with her perspective, and I feel like that's one reason I was like
Right. Yeah.
really
Before,
drawn.
in the very beginning, when I was just like finding people on the internet, like she was just like this, like so intense.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, she would, and yeah, I would listen to her stuff like over and over, even.
right. And they were
Um,
meditative, but I see how you that inspiration was sparked, and I love that's one of my favorite things that you've created is that collab with Bar. It's beautiful, and it is real. It is it is an experience for sure. That video.
a lot of people don't get it at all. They're just like,
Oh, really?
oh yeah, and especially non-manifestors,
Uh,
just like don't, just are not about to spend 8 minutes listening to a meditative poem on being a manifester.
oh yeah. Well, maybe valid,
Just to be in the mood.
yeah, maybe. But as a manifestor, I was like, this is good stuff. I mean, that's part of that. I mean, it's like a, a tasty creative treat for sure.
But eventually there will be a Neutrino Radio album, like a LP.
Oh,
That's
nice.
been the goal the whole time. I
Okay.
just,
Well, that's one of my questions is if you have like a vision for the overall vision of what you're creating, is that like the big piece, uh, or
I would like to have that be what the main thing that Neutrino Radio is
is an
to
actual
make music videos
mm.
and, play with a band at human design conferences and festivals and stuff.
I can
That's
totally
what
see
I
that.
want to do
I love that.
eventually. But
Yeah. Sounds like
it's
it's
like
moving
something
in
I
that
have to
direction.
do in my spare time. I'm not,
Yeah. It's not a
not that I don't
full-time
have enough
gig.
spare time, but like we said earlier, it's like you have to have the energy for it, and just doing it all by myself. Like, I don't like the tech side of things. That's the thing. Like I hate setting up microphones and getting levels right, and like getting the room ready, and all of that just kills everything for me like a lot of the time. And I just getting having to start with all of that, I don't really want to do any of the tech stuff. I really, I wish I had. They say manifestors should have people that,
A generator.
yeah, they just to carry out what you start, because
Right.
I have, like you said earlier, there's so many ideas, but it's like I can't just fucking do it all myself.
Right.
But
Then there's the challenge of delegating, like letting go of it actually, and then handing it off to someone else. I don't know. Like that's hard sometimes for
right,
me to like let go of it and actually be able to delegate to someone else
I know.
my vision. And then I end up just lone wolfing it, and
Yep,
sometimes they get done, sometimes they don't. I know if I
that's
had a creative
exactly it.
partner, that would change. But sometimes you recognize that a project's important enough to invest in that, in finding a partnership or a collab part, somebody to collaborate with. And um, yeah, it's just a constant work in progress sometimes to find the right collaborators and nurture those creative relationships that fuel us and not drain us.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's its own trick sometimes. But it sounds like things are moving in that direction. Like especially this, your conversation with Julia earlier. I mean, like moving in that direction, like having your the art that you've already created being shared in that atmosphere. I feel like that's like paving the way for you being there soon.
yeah. And in the conference in Santa Fe, I did a
Mm.
performance of my some of my songs.
That was the High Desert Human Design
Hmm.
Conference. Oh, that's cool. That's all. So
Yeah,
you got to perform there.
yeah, and that was well received too.
Oh, I
It
bet.
went pretty well. So yeah,
That's
I feel
awesome.
it's not the worst idea to like follow through with this whole
For
music project.
sure. For sure. And obviously you're talented. I mean, it's something that you have the skills and the equipment you other aside from the technical barriers that do like slow our flow sometimes, just that, working around the
Right.
technology and not getting
It's not
distracted by
even
the
the
technology.
flow. It's like I have to settle for
Yeah.
what I'm
Mm,
capable of doing. And it's like,
yeah.
I don't, I've only, I don't know, like using green screens, like that first video, like I'd never used a green screen ever. And
What?
it was like the whole basis of like the whole video is like all this troubleshooting and lighting it and setting up. I spent days just getting ready to shoot. And it's like, I
Mm,
hate all of that. I totally hate it.
right.
I don't like being the camera guy, even though I'm good at like like I kind of like the concept of like framing something, capturing like follow. I like to like go like shoot my friends playing tennis or something. Like there's something fun about it. But as far as like lenses and you know just camera settings and all that kind of stuff, I hate it. I have no interest in learning how to use a camera.
That's
And
not your,
obviously like it would be great if I could like my shit would look 20 times better, but I don't care. It's just
right.
like okay, as soon as it's good enough, it's like okay, just using it. I don't care if it looks kind of shoddy or artsy and not as pro as it could be. It's just like just do what I can do to like because I'm doing all myself, all the motion graphics, all the titles and all the stuff. It's like I really don't want to do that. I just want to have the idea and I want to do it as fast as possible, get it done.
Yeah.
So there's this balance of like, I don't know, it's like I end up like having these skills at the same time. I only have them because I just need to have them.
Right. To actually produce to
Yeah.
actually generate the idea or produce the thing,
Yeah.
you have to have some,
And like
yeah.
figuring out like I guess if I draw it on Procreate and put it in a green background, then I can green screen it onto my thing. Just like all these half-assed ways of doing things, especially
Yeah.
before I had professional editing software. Just like the most, I have to be creative about how I was creative. We could come up with
Yeah.
some other way
Yeah.
of creating this effect.
Yeah. Because I feel like sometimes that's like the most creative, we have to be the most creative when we're faced with the limitations our
Yeah,
of our resources.
absolutely.
Like that's where most of the creativity comes from, is just having to use what we have. And then that sort of informs the general like aesthetic in a way, is like because we had to
Yeah.
use this particular tool set or these particular resources, it totally informs the overall aesthetic of what we're
There's a
creating.
book called The Courage to Create. Are you familiar with that book by Rolla May?
Yes, I love that book. Actually,
There's a
I
lot
have
about
read it.
that, and
Yeah,
I only read it in high school, so it was more than 30 years ago. But I
yeah,
remember that part of it, like the thing about limitation being kind of the mother of creativity. Like you're forced to come up with other ways of doing things, or like I don't know, like this one summer, like me and my brother and some of our friends like volunteered to like teach art to little kids. And so like when we would have them paint, I'd be like, don't give them all the colors. It's just gonna be a
no,
big brown mess. Like this
right,
one only gets red and yellow. This one only gets yellow and blue. And this one, it's like have them give them just a limitation of colors so they don't
mhm,
just go take everything and just mush it all together. It's like it's gonna look cool. It's gonna, if they've got red and yellow, like the only three colors are gonna be red, yellow, and orange. When the orange, it's gonna look really cool,
yeah.
and instead of just like endless possibilities, and then they just end up just a pile of shit.
Right, right. When you throw it all in there, that's what you end up with, is a pile of shit. I
Mhm.
do remember that myself. Yeah, it's so true. Is
Accepting limitation. What is that?
accepting, yeah.
Gate gate 50, no, 60, right? Isn't that 60?
See, you're so much better at knowing like the gates. I feel like that's like one of those details that I haven't like studied, which is surprising because I've studied so much. Uh, and I'm also curious, have you like your friends in real life that are not, I don't know if you have friends in real life that are not into human design. Have you
Plenty.
in plenty? I mean, how have has have you done all their charts? I mean, are you curious about their design? You feel like you know their designs now without having to ask for their birth information, or is that something that's like organically sort of come up as you've been in your own experiment, like integrating
I
it?
know most of their. I mean, I know most of their charts, but if I don't know their birth times, I usually don't ask.
Mhm.
I don't. But some of them, they all know that I'm into this thing, and I drop little nuggets on them here and there. But I definitely don't try to encourage anybody to be interested in it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
If they come to you, then do people come to you with questions about
Not really.
not
I
really
mean,
interest?
a little bit, but
Mhm.
no,
No,
no, they don't care.
they don't care.
They
Yeah.
they absolutely don't, and it's like that's fine.
Mhm.
Like I was saying, we were talking about earlier how we go through these phases of having no interest in it and just
Mhm.
being burnt out and full of knowledge. It's like
Mhm.
I know exactly what it's like, and I'm reminded consistently what it's like to not be interested in that.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and then if somebody isn't compelled, there's I'm not I'm not
You're
even
not going to
trying to
compel.
like yeah, I ain't trying to like turn you on to this thing. It's fine. It's fine.
Right. Right. Yeah. I find myself I have no interest in initiating those who do not want to be initiated. I've had people who have come to me and are curious because they've heard about it and they've heard that I'm into it. Mostly I've been curious. It's been my own curiosity about other people's charts and like it makes sense like why uh you know I interact with certain people in certain ways, and like it has informed me about our, you know, composite charts and how we're impacting, how our auras are interacting, and so it's been interesting when I have had access to their birth information. But so I'm always curious about other people, especially, uh, you know, I feel like I don't know if it's I'm always surprised when I meet other people in Texas for some reason who are into human design, or outside of, I have this group of friends who are, I think I call them my woo leaning friends. They're definitely into more esoteric things. And so it's not surprising when they come to me or but sometimes I'm surprised when other people outside of that community uh, express interest or come to me. So because it is something that is niche for sure. Not it's not everybody's thing, and that's totally fine. So
It's starting to get to the point where it's like maybe my friends will ask me a little bit about it just out of some curious. Does human design say anything about this kind of thing or whatever? But then they'll
mm-hmm,
also like they'll have a friend who's interested in human design, and they'll
mm-hmm,
ask you were like, hey, could you run a chart for me or something? And then
mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of that going on
Right.
to some
Yeah.
extent.
And I think that lately I have been hearing more people outside of that circle who've like expressed curiosity, and maybe it just begins and ends with a curiosity, and that's it. But uh, you know it's interesting to kind of watch that evolution of interest kind of spreading. Yeah, I'm always curious to hear how other people experience it in their real life outside of like the human design community. Um, so,
Well,
um,
I hope you could come down to Austin at some point for when we have a gathering, some sort of get some human design people together because
I would love that. I would.
it's
Well, I love
very
Austin
cool.
anyway, and I've been like planning a road trip to Austin. I used to go way more often when I was living in Dallas, and since I moved to East Texas, I haven't been uh, in a while. So I was like, I've got to get back to Austin soon. I have some friends down there, and I would love to check out one of the gatherings and meetups. That'd be
Um,
amazing.
Whenever you come, I'll just make sure we have a gathering of some
Yeah,
sort.
yeah,
We'll just make sure we like meet up at a bar, or a
yeah.
coffee shop or something, and
That would be amazing. That would be awesome. I'll definitely make that
Killer.
happen and keep you posted. So we should do this again. I really loved talking to you and just kind of hearing your perspective
Totally.
and
And I feel like I'm not even completely
yo,
like I could even have hit the ground running a little bit more. Like my energy is not even 100% today. I feel like
yeah,
am I
let's do it
being
again.
interesting? Am I talking enough?
Yeah, to
So
me,
yeah, I
it's
mean,
been very interesting, and I could definitely talk to you for another hour, but we'll do it again, and we will
yeah,
dive in deeper. I would love to get in more into your chart and your experience of your design, and I had,
yeah.
I'm sure, a
I
lot more questions that I didn't organize very well, but I would love to do this again.
absolutely like yeah, we could just yeah, for sure. Like me do it in some semi-regular way.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Um cool. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Texas is really blowing up in general. Like Casey, who is the Houston runs the Houston group, she goes to these I don't even know what they are. Like there's in these big rooms where people walk around to different tables and stuff. Or maybe she sets up at the mall. I don't know what she does. She's like a
Wow.
table and she like goes places and like is like human design readings and she's got it's like you see a tarot card reader like sitting
Yeah.
somewhere and then people are like what's that and then they end up like going to her meetups in Houston and she'll have like 25 people at a meetup like then like a good amount of them are just like there to like find out about human design.
Oh, what's her? Is she a manifester as well, or
She's a projector,
a projector? Okay, that's
emotional projector.
interesting.
um
Wow. And so she's just guiding people and like opening the door and people are showing up. Wow. That's
yeah,
amazing. That's amazing.
so I mean and that's in Texas,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So Houston, they have their own, I'm guessing there's some overlap between Houston and Austin in terms of what the communities are doing, or
a
there's some
little
people who,
bit. Casey comes here a lot. She
okay.
and she's these projectors that these Austin projectors, they've got this tight little coven of projectors and they
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Casey comes and they're like best friends and they have sleepovers and stuff and
Private projector parties.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome.
um
Mm,
but I know there's Dallas folks
there's got to be.
just
Yeah.
waiting
Yeah.
for a chance to hang out. Like I know it.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see kind of check out what's happening in Houston and Dallas. I mean, Houston and Austin. And then, I'll do a little research per my investigative ways and see if I just haven't checked because, it's been a few years since I lived in Dallas. So I need to check and see if anything's popped up recently, like on Meetup or I
Right?
just know there may be something happening that I'm just not aware of. But if there's not, it'd be interesting to kind of, uh, you know, initiate something
Yeah.
and for sure.
Especially because you're an actual manifester. You can
Yeah, but it's totally unconscious. My only
mm,
channel to the throat is uh, all red. And so, like, I have to be like talking and not even like thinking about what I'm saying. When I'm
mm,
rambling, and a lot of times I'll just have to talk to myself before I know my will because it's totally unconscious. It is completely unconscious. My only manifesting channel is
right.
pure
I mean,
red.
it's basically a soundboarding authority, anyways, right?
Yeah,
Like to some
yeah,
extent.
yeah. That's what I've heard from other ego manifestors that um, it's really auditory. Like you have to hear your will in your voice. The ego speaks literally out loud. And so I have to be talking to myself or to someone else to hear my will. And a lot of times I'll be talking to someone and I'll hear myself say something. I'll be like, oh, I guess that's what I want to do. And I wasn't aware of it until I hear myself say it. So
So there's
yeah,
no like visceral feeling of like my heart's just not in it. I can't do this. Like
there
you have to like
is,
there
for me,
is.
there is, yeah, there is. I feel it in my, whether my heart is in something or not. uh, but I won't know it until I say it, till I speak it. That is true. That is really my authority. I'll have a sense of it, but then it's truly confirmed when I hear it out loud. That's how I've experienced it. But I do feel it in like there is a heartfelt feeling of whether my heart is in something or not, for sure.
My
So
friend Lacey, I mean, I know her through, human design, and we've only, we talked like on Zoom calls and stuff like this, but she's a she's an ego manifester, but she's a pure individual. So
uh,
she has initiation and inspiration. So they're both projected channels, making her
mm,
an ego manifester. But the way she talks about it is like almost like an awareness. Like
mhm,
it's like there is like an awareness
mhm,
to the heart center
mhm,
that can be like felt.
mhm. I feel it usually before I speak it. I think that the speaking it is how it's like becomes known, like confirmed, I suppose. That's how I confirm it, the feeling. Because sometimes,
Right.
like I'll feel it, but then when I hear myself say it, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that was my authority. That creates that connection between what I had felt before and then what I hear myself express.
Do you feel like there has to be another person involved, or can you do it like in some other workaround
I
way?
try to like talk to myself, and I do tend to talk to myself like innately. I feel like that's something that happens is I speak out loud to myself, when I'm alone. But I feel like it's most helpful when I'm speaking to another person because I can get in my head a lot when I'm by myself, um, and then I realize, oh, that's my head speaking, and and
Do you
not
ever
my heart.
do solo podcasts? Like, do you ever?
Yeah, I have. I haven't posted any of them.
Uh,
I know. I know. I feel like, and Anya asked the same thing. And so far, I've only posted interviews because I always judge them as being like too rambling. Like I feel like there's no direction. It's just sort of like, and I guess that's like the best. That's probably the best stuff that I have to
hmm.
offer is like that rambling sort of, like there probably is some consistency in it, but yeah,
I mean,
that
it's the reason I asked was really not so much about putting it into the world, but having a way
mm,
of soundboarding without another person. Like you just sit there and talk. Like you could go, go back and listen to it and
yeah, that's
see
actually a
if you.
pretty good idea. That's true. I need to utilize that as a tool. I used to do like voice memos all the time, and then I would put them into that. There's an app called Otter or something that translates audio files to like text files, and then I could read it because I'd rather read myself than listen to myself for some reason. Sometimes I think that's I know that's my own old conditioned judgments, but yeah, that probably is an underutilized tool for being able to really hear my heart uh speaking, um and not have to wait on someone else, because sometimes I mean like I am a total lone wolf and will spend uh, I teach a class, so I talk to my students on Tuesday and Thursdays, but that's related to graphic design and not really to anything else. But uh, sometimes I think after I've kind of like started my voice and I have that energy like amped up from teaching, I could come back and like record something. That's usually when I'm like feel like talking. I guess I have the energy to speak, but sometimes I feel like I just don't have the energy to like speak. But yeah, yeah, but that is a good
Well,
idea to like hear
also,
myself.
I mean, people might like what you have to say, like those solo things. I wouldn't
Yeah, maybe.
be so
Uh,
hesitant. You
yeah.
could just, go through it and find just like a minute long clips that you could put on Instagram, like just make little reels, like
Oh
the
yeah.
coolest little parts, the most profound things.
Yeah, that's a great idea. See, you have initiated me. Actually, it's interesting because Anya said the same thing. She asked the same question when I
Hmm.
talked to her last week if I was planning to do any just solo podcast, and um, And the fact that it came up again, maybe that I do feel like, you know,
Your
you,
frequency is so chill. Like
oh, no
that's a
way.
big part of the reason I reached out, because like I don't know, there's something not annoying about you. You know, it's like,
I
you
love to
know, as a
hear that.
manifester, you're like looking for those people that like don't annoy you.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's good to hear.
and just
Because I
like, you
feel
know,
like,
your questions seem like really genuine, and there's just this, and it's also that ego, defined ego, just sort of that slow, sort of like pushing through like in a nice reasonable rate, like pace, like I don't know, it's like you're, I think people would totally dig listening to you talk. Like I think,
well,
yeah, consider some solo.
I will. I appreciate that validation because sometimes I feel like I annoy myself. Like I don't know why I have a hard time listening to myself or rewatching podcasts sometimes. Like it takes me a while to edit an episode usually because I'm like, why am I so annoying? But it's good to know that I'm not coming across that way to other people.
I think you're so chill.
That's
Like I
awesome. Well,
really
likewise.
dig it.
Likewise, well, I'm really excited that we got to connect finally after this many years because it's been. I was trying to remember. Time is such a weird thing. I was like, when was that we took bars class? It was like it was before.
2020.
Oh, it was 2020.
And
Okay,
it was
yeah,
literally during like lockdown,
yeah.
um COVID. Like it
It,
was,
that's why it's such a blur, I guess.
that first class was like I mean, like literally like everyone was just in their houses.
Yeah, that's right. That is interesting. Yeah. So I'm glad that we finally got to connect after it's that this amount of time, and we will definitely do it again soon. And
Yeah, and
yeah,
you
I'd
know,
love to.
like let's just like be friends. You know, if you,
Yeah, yeah. Let's
you know,
do
we
it.
can just hit each other up, and you know, if
That'd
we
be
have
awesome.
ideas or
Love.
thoughts or whatever.
I'd love that. That's awesome. Awesome to connect and to actually like get to know you and
Totally.
experience your whole vibe is awesome. So I've definitely enjoyed it, and we'll connect again soon. Hopefully in person. Hopefully I can plan a trip to
Right?
Austin soon. It would be
Yeah.
awesome. But I'll send you links and inform you as soon as it's ready to be released into the wild. So,
Awesome. Oh, also, I'll probably just see it.
oh
I'll
yeah,
look up and
yeah, there it'll be.
turn on YouTube, and it'll be there.
I'll
So
probably, I've been trying to inform people before it goes like live. Just,
informing is good.
I try. We'll see. We'll see. All right.
Awesome.
Well, take care. We'll talk soon
You too.
again. All
All
right.
right. Awesome. That was great.
Yeah. Likewise. Peace, man.
Okay. Bye.